Thank you. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. For the past 2 seasons, Christina Hendricks has been one of the good girls. Well, sort of. She's a good mom, wife, but with one little hang-up. Her, Retta, and Mae Whitman are criminals. In this season, the 3 of them have new dilemmas forcing them to maintain their life of crime. Please welcome the one and only, the great Christina Hendricks. Let's hear it. Hey. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me. I'm like, hey,
Startled by the mic.
yeah. This will work better.
I love this show, and I'm going to start without questions, just a couple compliments and comments about why I like the show. And one of them is that the pilot of the show was so strong. I remember first seeing it and thinking to myself, that's a pilot. That is a phenomenal pilot. But oftentimes I find with great pilots is that the creators are nervous about actually turning it into a TV show, which requires a fair amount of soap, which I love. That's why I watch TV. And one of the things I like about Good Girls is I feel like it is not afraid to be soap when it has to be soap, and it does it very, very well. And so it makes for incredibly entertaining television. Again, no question, like I said.
Thank you for the compliment. I did wonder when I read the pilot script, like, well, this seems almost like a film. It's a perfect nugget of a thing. So where do we go from there? You know, how do you keep telling this story? And Jenna Bans, our creator, has managed to do it successfully and hilariously, and as you know, in a dark way as well. But yes, I mean, it is. You can't just turn on one episode. You know, you do need to watch the series. You're going to miss some things if you didn't see it, you know, the episodes before. But I think people get more attached and hooked on the characters because of that.
It also feels like, and obviously everybody says this, but there is a vibe from the show where it feels like everybody is working together on the show. It doesn't feel like everybody is separate, or feels like you enjoy working together, both crew and cast.
I have to say it's a dream job. These women are, I mean, they're my family now. I just couldn't love them more. But everyone and the crew, it really is sort of everyone trying to make everyone else's job as easy as possible and as fun as possible, and being creative with one another and problem solving. And it really does feel like a team effort. It's interesting that you picked up on that, because we definitely feel it, but you never know if an audience is gonna feel that energy, or sometimes, you know, we're actors and we generate chemistry with people that we've never met before.
Right. But I call a cut and you're like, bye.
Yeah, see ya. But we really do. So it's nice that you felt it.
Well, it was even just sort of when I was complimenting the music choices in the green room, and you said that there was a playlist. That is not a normal thing for the actors to feel comfortable enough to present music to producers or creators and say, I really like this music. You know, I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a music freak, which I think you are as well. And I just think it is such an important tool in storytelling and tone and mood. And so from season 1, I said, what about this song for something? Or what about this song? So I started making playlists that I collaborate with our creators and a couple of the other actors. And we put inspiration songs on. Some of them, you know, are too expensive to ever get, but it'll inspire something. And we've got this amazing music supervisor who takes some of our songs and uses some of our pieces, or finds something similar that we can't afford and use. And I think makes this show sexier. I mean, I really notice it when I watch other people's shows. I'll be texting my boss being like, you know who's got really good music? Shrill, check it out. Right. You know, and I just think that's another cool character of the show. So I'm really proud, and I'm glad you noticed it.
Well, it's when it feels selective, right? Because so oftentimes when you're watching a show, or even movies now, the music selections feel like stock music in a way. Yeah. Like, oh, this is like a sort of stock indie dance song we'll put over this montage. Where if someone is putting Swans, which is, you know, an 80s goth metal band turned noise band from the 80s and 90s, you're like, someone had to really think about using this song and cared about this band.
Yes, another one of our executive producers, Bill Krebs, is also a music fanatic, and him and I separately send each other music daily, weekly, a new song, a new band that we discovered, or someone, you know, the latest track off of such and so we're sharing separately, and then we choose the things that we really like and add it to that list, and then we forward it to them.
How often do you find that they tell you when a song that you've offered to them is being used, or you just turn on the show and you're like, oh, they're using the song that I suggested?
Jenna knows how excited I get, so she usually will call and say, by the way, episode 2, we used your track. A couple times, there's a song that I've suggested, like there was the artist Yeji, and I wanted to get this song on, but she doesn't license her music. She's too cool. She's too underground and cool. So we tried to get her on the show, but we couldn't. So sometimes she'll go, you got a song, and then we have to replace it with something else. But she usually tells me, because it's like, I brag. I get another song on the show.
So tell us what's going on with Beth this season.
Beth has decided she likes crime far too much. This all started out with solutions to problems that they had. Keeping their home. Ruby's daughter was ill. Keeping someone in school. There was a reason why they decided we're gonna go in and do this grocery store one and done. We're gonna, and then Beth realizes that it sort of sparked something in her, and she feels alive again. And so now she's sort of on this hamster wheel of, when do you drop off? Because there's too many loose bits. If you just stop, then you're going to get caught in this. So now it's about
That's how crime does pay, in a way.
And crime does pay. And she's like, wait a minute. Why am I giving a cut to this guy? Yeah. I know what I'm doing. So now she's trying to sort of do it on her own, cut out the other members, and just try to sort of create with these 3 women their own crime empire.
It's not in any way the same show or the same occupation, but it's somewhat of a similar trajectory to Joan and Mad Men, in the sense of like, I'm going to cut out the middlemen. I know what I'm doing. Like her entire arc on that show was basically learning and then establishing that she could do this herself and doesn't need these doofus old guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny because so many people go, "Wow, your character is so different." They're such different, and they are incredibly different in many ways. But they also realize they're very good at something that they haven't noticed about themselves, and then they decide to proceed with that, and sort of some self-discovery of their talents and their value. And in this case, it's not.
Legal? No.
Illegal is the word I'm looking for. Exactly. I mean, they're up to no good, but she's good at being up to no good. But there are similarities there, yeah.
Sort of an arc of recognizing her own strength or finding her own strength, be it in a legal occupation or in, maybe an occupation that should be illegal, advertising. We don't know.
Right. And well, I think too, there's the fans of the show are like, it's got this real you go girl kind of backing and support of these women, even though they're doing something horrible, because I think it's relatable in the beginning. Like, what would you do for your family? What would you do for your kids? What would you do? We can all sort of say, I might do something a bit criminal, and then you go into the element of fantasy. Right. Then it's like, man, I wish I could just go in, and then as you're watching that, you're fulfilling that fantasy of if only. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the friendship, and like, well, would my friends have my back if I went in and robbed a grocery store? Maybe they would.
It's interesting because it feels like we have, at the risk of having a somewhat cliche conversation, we have had versions of male shows like that all the time, right? Where the fantasy of being a criminal and being a man is something, or even not a criminal, just a cad, is something that like the entire culture rallies around and supports. But when it comes to women-led shows about female criminals, there still needs to be very valid reasons as to why they fall into a life of crime. It can't just be like Tony Soprano, who's like just a sociopath and a criminal who we like.
Yeah, well, and in season 1, they had a good reason, and now they don't. And now she's just like...
Is Beth going to just become a kind of sociopathic criminal?
She's not out killing people. It's not... Yet. Yeah, I think if we take them down that road, I'm not spoiling anything by saying that. If we take them, the thing that's charming and interesting about the show is that they're constantly teetering on the edge of this thing, right? And that's why it's relatable, is you can go, well, yeah, I mean, I've done that, or I might do that, but they're messy at it. It's
right, they're not great.
No,
criminals.
it's fun to watch them mess up, because sometimes we'll get the scripts and we go, well, how are they doing that when 2 episodes they did they not learn anything? And our creator goes, no, they didn't. She goes, Beth is not Christina. Beth is not like fact checking and laying in bed at night going, wait, did she wipe her fingerprints off of it? Beth is like
Wait, is
in
Christina
the moment.
doing that?
Well, I worry for Beth. I worry about her mistakes.
What are you up to in your personal life that you're worried about your fingerprints?
I'm wiping everything down, everything around me. No, but when you throw yourself into a character, you have to be in their mindset. So you have to think, well, if I'm saying this line, it has to be, this has to be behind it. So I'm constantly going, but why? But why? And she goes, because it happened in the spur of the moment. This happened. You don't know what you're gonna do in, when a surprise when surprise crime happens. So I think the fun thing is watching them mess up, try to clean it up, and they're funny women too.
Yeah.
I like when a writer writes a character knowing that they're making jokes. Mm-hmm. Like the actors, we're not just making a joke only the audience knows it's a joke, but the characters don't. These people are like, haha. They're trying to make each other laugh a little bit, which I think is enjoyable.
Well,
and
also
it lends to the goofiness of it.
Their jokes between each other are funny. Like,
Yeah.
I find nothing more irksome than when characters laugh at each other and no one is saying anything funny, but you're just supposed to glean from their laughter that they're charming. Right. And like no one is actually charming in any way. And
Yeah.
you're like, why would you laugh? No one would laugh at that.
Yeah.
That's not funny.
And I enjoy when one of us makes a joke and the other two don't laugh.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to make them laugh and they just go, no, it's not working. Because that's the history of these women. They know each other so well that, you don't always, they're not polite with one another.
And there are still, as much as Beth is starting to enjoy crime this season, there are still clear objectives or motivations for her to get back into crime. I mean, without giving too much away, I would say there's a pretty significant guest star in episode 2 that it becomes a motivation for her to
Who's
follow
in episode
through.
2?
Jessica Walter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who becomes kind of a
I haven't seen
motivation
this
for
season
her to sort of get back into or
Yes,
make
I
sure
mean,
that it works out.
The thing is, it always does tie back to domestic life.
Yeah.
It does always come back to the family and the neighborhood and the kids and managing this and trying to keep up with the Joneses, and doing this all under everyone's nose cleanly, still trying to do the bake sale, and still try to make counterfeit money. As you do.
The first thing that I saw you, and I think it was really the first thing that you did, it was during Mad Men, but sort of outside of Mad Men, was Drive. Was that the first thing that was really the sort of, while doing Mad Men and sort of blowing up for Mad Men, you got another part and did another project?
It might have been.
I know post Mad Men, there's a number of other projects during it.
I would say that was probably, it was certainly probably the most exciting project that I, film that I had done up to that point. I'm going to have to say yes on that because I can't think of anything, otherwise. I'd done, lots of television and stuff before that, but that was an exciting film to be a part of, and I went to meet with Nick Winding Refn, who's the
You've worked
director.
with twice, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend now, and
He's a wild man.
he's a wild man.
In the best way.
He
He's one
is.
of my favorite people to interview because I never know he intentionally drives it to some strange place.
He loves that. He loves to intentionally throw people and he had not seen Mad Men at the time that I went to meet him for that role, and the casting director had recommended me, and I walked in and he said, "So I wanted to hire a stripper, but it turns out they can't act. so do you want to do it? And I was like, is this a compliment insult? I'm not sure what's happening here, but yes. And I had just seen Bronson, which he directed and was phenomenal. And I said, I want to work with this director. And it wasn't a very large role, but there were only 2 female roles in the whole film. And I just wanted to be a part of the project. And we ended up having fun with that character. We sort of gave her some background, even though it was a few scenes. We established some fun stuff about her.
I love that character because the way that she's dressed, the way that you are performing, and just the way that you're smoking a cigarette, I know who that character is. Like, I know who that person is in reality and how she exists within this world. Yet it's never established or talked about.
No, Aaron Bennick, who is the costume designer who, designed that fantastic scorpion jacket that Ryan wears in it, I came in with some ideas because I said, okay, I only have this much screen time. I want to make this woman interesting. Otherwise, you don't care that, her head gets blown off. Spoiler. And
graphically.
Yes. So you want to sort of have a little bit of feeling or understanding of who this woman is. So we had decided that we had earrings designed with her name in them, and I wanted a certain kind of nail, and I dyed my hair a sort of like candy-colored red, and we just had this a very specific vision of who she was, our Blanche.
None of it glamorous, though, which is what I liked about her. It's like, at the risk of maybe, it's like trashy glamorous, right?
For sure, yeah.
Which you get right away when you see that.
Yeah, it was sort of we've all met that person, we've all know that person, and I wanted it to be very, very specific, and they were excited about it, and happy that I came with those ideas, and so they.
Do you find that regularly when you're on a project that you can be that collaborative and bring that many ideas to the table?
I mean, not always, and Nick is really, really great about that. And on set, he'll even say, like, do you want to try something else? He's like, I will shoot this all day long, and I will shoot this scene forever and ever and ever until you just say you're done and you feel like you did what you want to do. He's like, because I'll play and have fun. Yeah, he's very cool that way. So he lets you try things out. And
with Matthew Weiner, it's pretty specific to the page.
With Matt, it's I mean, if it says Joan blinks on the page, then you blink when it says blink. I mean, it's so specific that at times you would say, God, don't you trust me to make the right choice here? Can't you just trust? And it was okay because he was always right. It always worked, right. So then you just start trusting it so much that you're like, you know what, he's got a vision, and it's my job to, in these very regimented specifics, to make it look as human as possible, which is a challenge kind of in the opposite direction, is sometimes you have so much freedom that you're like, how do I narrow down the choices, where this is like, I have no freedom. How do I make this look like a real living person who really did want to blink at that exact moment and make it, some people would be like, oh, did you guys ad-lib that one thing? And I just, before the sentence is even done, I'm like, yeah. Oh, no, we did not. We were not allowed to do any of that.
There's so much evidence in regards to Mad Men that nobody was ad-libbing. I don't know why you would ask that question.
Someone asked me, there was a scene with the Lane character where they're all at a steakhouse, and he gets up and holds his belt buckle and says something about being American, and they're all drunk. And they were like, oh, did Jared Harris improv that? And I was like, no, he's just a fantastic actor. He's just he just made it seem so real and spontaneous. So that's the challenge with that, is just making it seem spontaneous when it's so scripted.
More or less rewarding for you as an actress?
Different. I think rewarding when you can go back and watch it and you can see that you've accomplished what you tried to do, that it does seem conversational and real, and that these people really do exist in this world, and that you've helped move that along. Whereas when you sort of are ad-libbing or playing off one another, or maybe you're coming up with prop ideas and stuff, it maybe feels more collaborative and artistic in the moment. Mm-hmm. But they're both rewarding, just in different ways.
And when it comes to Good Girls, does Good Girls exist somewhere in between the two of those, or are you generally pretty much following the script?
A little bit of both. I think in season 1 we did a lot more ad-libbing. And as the crime got more specific,
The beats got tighter.
we have to be, you can't just throw something in because it might change the trajectory of the storyline. I did something at the end of season 1, simply blocking. We were in the grocery store. We were going on our second heist in the grocery store. And I had to put something in an envelope and write on it. And in order to do that with all my hands, I went like this with the pin cap and tossed it on the ground with my mouth so that I would have free hands. Well, I didn't think about that, but it ended up being the storyline for season 2 that I left my DNA on a pin cap on the ground, which ended up being a fun tool that we could use, but you can't always just mess up. So they ended up using it. They could have cut around it and the audience would have never seen that pin cap was on the ground and it didn't have to be a storyline. It ended up being a fun and convenient storyline. But as the time goes on, you have to be tighter and tighter and more specific with amounts of money, timelines, all that sort of thing. So, because there are so many little slip-ups that can happen.
Do you find yourself, as the show progresses, you're in your 3rd season now, that you are protective of your character? And because shows have to bring in different directors all the time, and there's new writers that are coming on board, and I'm sure everybody's pretty much on the same page, but do you find yourself protective of Beth when you're on set and what she would or wouldn't do?
Jenna Bans, who created the show, does very great specific tone meetings with each director. The thing about our show is that it is drama, but there's tons of comedy. So I think the trickiest thing for our directors is to get our tone. And to not go too broad with comedy, to keep it real, really play the moments, because we think that the absurdity is where the humor comes in. So they luckily get a lot of sit-down time with her and instruction about sort of the feeling that she wants to accomplish in each scene. And we're really able to, I am there every day, all day, and so I just am very vocal about it. I go, and it's usually, it's never a character thing, because Jenna and I talk a lot about that, and if there's something I don't understand, I just call her and she can explain it to me, and I go, okay. I've never felt protective of a character because I didn't create her. Right. Jenna did, or Matt created Joan. I can't go, well, Joan wouldn't do that. Well, yes, she would, because Matt just wrote it down on a piece of paper. So that's exactly what Joan would do.
Matt is Joan,
yeah,
right.
And I feel that way about Beth, too. And that's the fun thing about doing series television, is when you are lucky enough to have season after season, is the characters has a history now, right? So the next script, I'll go, Beth's gonna do that. I can't say that's out of character. It's just the newest thing about her character, and it's my job to make it make sense with what you've seen thus far, so that it doesn't seem incongruous. That you're not all of a sudden going, she would never. It's my job to make it. Of course she would, because look at her, she's doing it.
I feel like those tone meetings have to be so important for those directors, because you 3 actresses have very different styles of performing, which work wonderfully within the show, but a director has to know how to shoot and how to cut those performances in a different way. Like, I think Retta has a very different style of performing than you do, and the same thing with May. Does it feel like that when the 3 of you are together, or does it always feel like you're sunk up and know?
We are aware of each other's different styles. Yeah. I think we admire and appreciate the strengths that other people, like I can't do what May and Retta do, and they can't necessarily do what I do. And the writers write to our strengths. Every once in a while, a director will be like, well, say it like that because, you're the crazy one or something. And we go, it's not that black and white. We can't, it's not really. And usually if we can explain it to them, they go, oh, yeah, that's better. Never mind. Because we have a good grasp.
Producer next to them goes, don't say that to them.
Yeah. We always have a writer-producer on set, too, who's been in those tone meetings. So if there's ever a question where I go, hey, you know what? It says in here, Jenna wrote this, and we're not doing it, but I feel like she wrote it for a very specific reason. Can we call her because I don't want to block this and shoot this, and we forgot to shoot this angle or something because it might play in 2 episodes from now, and we don't realize the significance of it right now, but it will be. So let's make sure we know why we're doing this. And we all just talk very freely about it. No one gets defensive or, you know, on some shows people can be like, stay in your lane kind of thing. And this is all of us trying to figure it out and problem solve together.
Well, there's so much fear in production that like of that stay in your lane thing always comes from like, you're going to cause me more work to think about. I don't know how to do that right now.
Or like the fear of you getting blamed for something not being, you know, and instead we're all like, let's just catch it and solve it right now before we have to deal with it down the line. So everyone's just very vocal, and sometimes we'll go, why would I do that? And everyone goes, I don't know. Why would you do that? And we just, you know.
Just do it.
We just call upstairs. We call the lady upstairs, and she tells us.
God. You call God, and God is like,
we call
this
her.
is why I have deigned you to do this.
Yes, exactly.
We have a question from Twitter. It's out of all the crimes Beth has committed, which one do you wish she hadn't done?
My goodness. I don't know how to answer that. It's all one big ball of crime. I feel like one thing's led to another. So I would say she shouldn't have done any of it. She shouldn't have done the grocery store. She wouldn't be in this predicament. And she probably shouldn't have had sex with the gang friend because, you know, now she's really entangled in that mess, you know. That was probably a bad crime of hers.
You know, this show is kind of one of the things that brought Matthew Lillard back. He did a few episodes of *Halt and Catch Fire*, which was a show that I loved.
I did too.
What has it been like working with him over the course of these seasons?
I love him so much. He is such a great actor, and you know he's known for doing very broad comedy, and he can do that. But he's also able to just flip into this like very connected, intimate marriage relationship that we have, where we are just 100% focused, and then he can turn around and do the comedy so quickly. He's very masterful at it, and I just feel super lucky. He's always got my back. He's just very protective of me. I know that sounds sort of like a strange thing to say, like, why would I need it? But just, you know, it can be very, very intimate working with another actor, and especially when it's a relationship of love or broken love. And so when you have someone who's just there nurturing and willing to try anything, and I just
And checks in, I bet, too. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's what you mean by like has your back. A lot of times it feels like you're doing those scenes and someone cares enough to just check in.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes someone will, you know, make a choice and they really just want to, they firmly believe in that choice and they don't want to sort of sway from it. Whereas we'll watch one another and go, oh, interesting, that's so smart. I didn't know you were going to play it that way. I had this in my mind, but now that I see what you're doing, I need to change it because what you're doing is perfect. And it's just, you know, being flexible,
Right.
you know.
I love, he can do that broadly comic thing, but what I really notice about him in this show is that he strikes me as a person of sort of boundless energy. And
Oh, yes.
but he has to restrain all of that for this character, which works so well for like a kind of philandering, like always searching for an out, always looking for an excuse type of repressed person. There is an energy that they don't know how to let out in their daily lives, and you sort of feel it when you're watching.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an anxiousness that he plays that's sort of like, I don't know if I'm about to mess up again. I don't know, is this the right thing? Is this the wrong thing? I love my wife, but she's doing crime. Do I support her? It's so layered what he does. And, you know, the audience wanted to just hate him because he cheated on Beth in the beginning. And they're just like, Dean, we hate Dean. But they kind of just can't help but sort of feel for him and love him because he's just this sort of damaged, real, slightly insecure character. And I just find him endlessly interesting to watch.
And is that Ione Skye with him
It is.
this season? Yeah, that's pretty great.
I know. We were all very excited to meet her. She came into the table. We're Ione Skye. You guys say Ione Skye. Yeah, and she's very kind and sweet.
A couple questions from the audience. The first one is from Sheila.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Hi. So you played Joan for a significant amount of your career, and you play her with such strength and grace, and she's a character that's meant a lot to me. And in playing a character that's so vibrant like that, is there any residual Joan left in your personal or bringing her to your professional life?
It's interesting. You get to play someone every day for almost 10 years. And, if you don't learn from them a little bit, then what a shame. I have to say, watching people's reactions to Joan over the years, I remember season 1 being out to dinner. Season 1, who am I kidding? It was probably more like season 3 when people really started watching the show. But I would be out to dinner and women would come up to me and go, I just want to thank you for your confidence. You've made me feel so strong about myself. And I was like, I learned how to love myself more through her and to have more confidence in myself through her. And I think to be more ambitious because of her. So I learned a lot from Joan. I miss her. Oh, I almost got a little teary-eyed. Woo!
One of my favorite storylines with Joan was I think it was maybe in the last season or second to last season, when she married that kind of emasculated man who didn't really know what to do with himself, who kind of left her.
Her doctor?
Yeah, her doctor, and who, it seemed like upon that, she was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm just going to live life for myself. I don't need that. Life, this is what I am going to focus on. I thought that was such a strong choice on the part of the creator.
And yeah, so smart of Matt, because we saw Joan start out as knowing her place at the beginning of the entire show, and sort of even saying to the Peggy character, if you're lucky, you'll get a husband, you'll move out to the country, you won't have to work anymore, it'll be great, just play your cards right. And she could have been pigeonholed in this kind of representation of the 1950s as we're moving through the 1960s, but instead he let her learn how to become a feminist. Whereas Peggy was probably always a feminist, Joan wasn't, and realized that there was something else out there. And so at the beginning, she wants a husband. She gets the doctor, and it's what she wanted, and then it's not all it's cracked up to be. And she realized she's
stronger than him.
She's stronger than him.
He doesn't know how to take it.
Yeah, and she has to take care of him and manage him. And it's exhausting and it's embarrassing. And
I love that story.
Yeah, I thought it was good too.
Yeah. One more question from the audience, from Tiffany. Hi.
Hello, Christina.
Hi.
Hi. So we have a group actually of fans on Facebook, and there's 24,000 people that post every day. And they love the show. But it's really picking up. We know it's originally aired on NBC, but there's been an entirely new fan base coming from the streaming service. So I just wanted to know how that feels for you, having such a influx of new members watching the show and loving the show.
We're thrilled. I don't care where someone watches it as long as they're watching it, because I really think it's unique, and I really do think it's different. And I think when it started on NBC, people didn't go there to find it because it's not the kind of show that you would expect to find there. And you might just see a big poster on the side that says NBC, and you go, what's that new sitcom? You can't quite tell the tone or what it is. And then when it came on Netflix, all of a sudden we were just getting all these viewers, and all these people were popping up and getting excited. And so some people still think we're just a Netflix show. And many people will probably wait until it's on Netflix so you can stream it, because that's how we love to watch TV these days. But I just feel lucky that we've got a couple different avenues to show it to people, because some people don't have Netflix, and some people turn on their basic cable and they get to watch NBC. So the more the merrier.
Matt, it was prior to the streaming services really breaking out, but Mad Men was kind of the same way for those first couple seasons, right? Didn't people go back and and watch it for the first time via maybe Hulu at the time or something like that, and then it really grew into what it was by, like you said, the third season?
Maybe. I'm not exactly sure how the popularity happened with that. I do, when I was just saying it wasn't until season 3, I remember season 1 and 2, people would go, "Oh, you're an actress. That's great." And they, "Oh, what are you working on?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on a show called Mad Men." They're like, "She's on Mad Money. You guys has anyone heard of Mad Money?" I'm like, "It's called Mad Men." And and so it wasn't until season 3 where, all of a sudden we were part of the culture, and we were, people were using Mad Men in their news articles referencing something else, or where you went on eBay, instead of saying 1960s dress, it said Mad Men dress. And then all of a sudden things just started shifting, and I don't know if that's because all of a sudden they were watching it on Netflix, or I don't know. At that time, I don't know how you went back and watched like a previous season. I'm not exactly sure, but it started to become, part of the language. So.
Well, we have to wrap it up. The show premieres Sunday night, right?
Yep.
On NBC.
Yeah.
But before we go, we started off talking about music. What's the last thing that you listened to before coming out here?
This morning, I was listening to Angel Olsen.
The new one? Great album, right?
Great album. Just saw her live, too. She was amazing.
Oh, I've seen her live, too.
She's so
really
good.
Great. The one and only Christina Hendricks, everybody. Let's hear it.
Thanks, guys.